Before we graph a system of equations, we have to be able to graph a line. And in order to be able to graph a line, you have to understand in context what is happening and why we graph lines. So here we have the x-axis and the y-axis. And we have teacher A, and teacher A is going to give away 5 pencils per day. Okay, so teacher A is going to start up here with 20 pencils and then give away 5 pencils per day. So on day 0, how many pencils does she have? Well, she has 20 pencils. That's what she's starting with to give away. And then on day 1, she gives away 5 pencils. How many does she have? She has 15. And then on day 2, she gives away 5 more pencils and she has 10. And on day 3, she gives away 5 more pencils. She has 5 left. And then by day 4, she gives away her last 5 pencils and she has none. She's broke. This is a linear relationship. It makes a line because she gives away exactly the same amount of pencils per day. The rate of change that she is changing is constant. Okay, teacher B says, you know what? Teaching is about the teachers. Students should be giving me 5 pencils per day. So she starts off on day 0 and she has no pencils. And then on day 1, she collects 5 pencils. On day 2, she collects 5 more pencils and she has 10 pencils. On day 3, she collects 5 more pencils and she's got 15. And on day 4, she collects 5 more pencils and she has 20. So what this means is that this point here is the point that the two systems share in common. I didn't completely perfectly overlap them so that you could see that they were in the same place. But what does that point say? What does that point mean? Well, what do each of the points mean? The x-axis refers to the number of days that the teachers are dealing with pencils. What does the y-axis mean? Well, it's referring to the number of pencils. So if you look at day 1, teacher B has collected 5 pencils, but teacher A has given away 5 pencils and is down to 15 pencils. So on day 1, teacher A is at 1, 5, but teacher B is at what? Oops, teacher B is at 1, 5. What is teacher A? 1, 15. Okay. On day 1, teacher A has 15 pencils left, and on day 1, teacher B has 5 pencils in her possession that she's collected. Okay, so what do these equations look like? Well, teacher A started with 20 pencils. And she was giving away 5 pencils per day. Well, what's day? It's the x value. X is the number of days. So if we put a 3 in for x, 3 times 5 is 15. What is 20 minus 15? Well, 5. Well, if you look at day 3, the red teacher has 5 pencils. Let's do that again. Day 3, if I put a 3 in here, 3 times 5 is 15. 20 minus 15 is 5. If you look over on our graph at day 3, When x is 3, what is y? Y is 5. And this is how our functions all work together. So, this number here is the starting amount. And this is our rate of change. And then teacher B, well, what did she start with? She started with nothing. She started with 0. And we don't really write 0. We just write the rate of change. But for the sake of keeping it consistent, let's just write the 0. Now, is she giving away or is she collecting and adding? She's adding into her collection, right? She's gaining 5 per day. So again, we wouldn't write 0 plus. We would just write y equals 5x. We know the seeing that means she's starting with nothing and she's just gaining 5 per day. Also, when you see a positive equation, it's going to go up and to the right. Okay, so we start here at the origin and go up to the right, up to the right, up to the right, up to the right, because you're gaining. It's a positive function. When you have a subtraction, it's negative. It's going to go down and to the right, 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 because your balance is going down. You're losing money or you're giving away something. You're going into debt. You're going down and to the right. So then what does that center point that we circled mean? What is the big deal about the point in the center that is circled over here, right here? What does this point mean? It means that on day 2, both teachers, that's my dog in the background, had the exact same what? They had the exact same amount of pencils on the exact same day. On day 2, they both had 10 pencils. I'm running out of colors here. Let's see, too orange. On day 2, they both had 10 pencils. And that is what a solution to a system means. It means the point at which both of these equations are equal. So if I put a 2 in for x in this equation, 5 times 2 is 10. If I put a 2 in for this equation, 5 times 2 is 10. 20 minus 10 is also 10. Y equals 10 and y equals 10. It is the point at which they are both equal. Let's move into actually graphing. So let's take a look at the work that was provided for you. Here we have a system of 2 equations. And we're going to find, instead of starting with 20 pencils, in our example here, we're going to start with plus 3. And we're going to take away 5 pencils every 3 days. So we're going to go down and to the right because we're losing, we're giving away, we're going into debt 5 every 3 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're losing a quantity of 5, so now we're in debt 2. In 3 days, 1, 2, 3. And we really only need 2 points to make a line. Once we have 2 points, we can pretty much create that line right there. Now, what about the other line? The other line says we are starting in debt 3. Okay. And we're going to gain 1 pencil every 3 days. So we're going up 1 in 3 days, up 1 in 3 days. And so our line is going this way. Well, here we see we have an intersection right here. What does that intersection mean? It means that after, when x is 3, and in my little context story, it means in 3 days, we both are in debt 2 pencils, or 2 whatevers, quantity of 2. So the solution to the system is 3, negative 2. This means if I go back into my regular equations and I put a 3 in for x, after I do the math, times the fraction, subtract or add the constant, my y term will come out as negative 2. So here's number 2, another classic example of two linear equations. This is considered a system. And we're going to start off with the first one, just that's what I'll pick. So we're starting with 3 objects, whatever they are. And we're going to gain 4 objects per 1 day. Now, how did I know it was per 1 day? Well, whenever you have a whole number, you can always put it over 1 to get your ratio. Okay, to turn a whole number to a fraction, we're going to put it over 1. And so I would go up 4 and over 1. So gaining 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 per 1 day. Well, as you can see, we're off the grid. But if we're gaining 4, we're going up and over to the right, then we're also, theoretically, can go down to the left just to make that line. Oops, that's 3. See, even teachers make mistakes. Okay, so we're going down 4 and over 1 because I put the little dot off the grid so that you could see this would be the continuation of the line. Okay. So why do I draw arrows at the end of my lines and why do I extend them so far? Because really, even though my little graph here stops, in theory, this line goes on forever in both directions. So the arrows are to indicate that that line is continuing on. We don't just stop. The information doesn't just stop because we ran out of paper. Okay, so what about the other equation? So again, we're starting at minus 2. So we're starting in debt. I borrowed $2 from my mom, and I'm going to go down. I'm going negatively. I'm borrowing $1 a day. So I'm already borrowing $2 from her, and then I need to borrow $1 a day. So let's say the first day I need to buy some candy grams, right? And each day I'm going to buy one. So the first day, or for day 0, I start $2 in debt. So I bought 2 before I ever even really got started borrowing from her. Then on day 1, I borrowed $1, so now I'm $3 in debt to her. On day 2, I borrowed another $1, so I'm $4 in debt. Now, how did I know I was borrowing $1? Well, here, I don't say it's, there's one line, there's one graph, there's one red star. We say there's a star, there is a line, there is a graph. So there is a negative x. But it happens to be that that negative x is 1 negative x. And remember, you can put anything over 1, any whole number over 1. So we're starting at negative 2, and we're going negatively $1 per day. Well, this doesn't cause my 2 lines to intersect, right? Okay, but remember, the line's going in both directions. So if we're going down and to the right because we're going down into debt, we're also going up and to the left. And so here is where the 2 lines intersect. At -1 days, we would have -$1. And I know that makes no sense because you can't have negative days. But again, this is theoretical algebra. This really is using context only to try and help you understand that whatever this spot is, it's where the 2 lines are equal. So what is the solution to the system? The solution is -1, -1. Okay, try and do the couple more on your own. Okay, so I'm going to blow through these quickly because hopefully you paused it. You've tried to do 3 and 4 on your own, and you can check your answers here. So I'm just going to graph them all in the same color. We're going to go to -1, and we're going up 1, or we're going down 1. We're going into debt. So down 1 per 2 days. Down 1 per 2 days. 1 per 2 days. We're off the grid. And then up 1 per 2 days. Up 1 per 2 days. Up 1 per 2 days. Okay, so there's my first line. And again, fully extend off the graph. Put my arrows in. Then I'm at -4, but I'm gaining. It's positive 1/4. So I'm going up 1 per 4 days. And I'll use a different color just so that you can see. Starting at -4, 1 per 4 days. And terrible line drawing. Mrs. Evans completely lost it there. And so what we're saying is this is the point at which they're equal. So that is x is 4 and y is -3. That's the solution to that system. And checking our answers here. Y equals -1. This one always gets folks. What we're saying is y is -1. It's -1, it's -1, y is -1, y is -1. No matter what the x value is, y is -1. Okay? And then y is -5 halves plus 4. So we start at plus 4. Let's say we have 4 pencils, but we're giving away 5 every 2 days, right? So if we give away 5, we're down here at the negatives, giving away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then per 2 days. So there's my next dot. So we started at +4. We're crashing through there. And so the dot that they share is this spot right here. This means x is 2 and y is -1. And that's the solution to my system.